So years of Edinburgh experience, a wonderfully funny comedian who the Scotsman called a multicoloured ray of eternal sunshine. Bec Hill, welcome.
It's a good pull quote, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, you can't pay for that.
I mean, anybody that's been to Edinburgh in the month of August knows that the Scotsman claiming to know what a ray of eternal sunshine is a bit of a stretch, but yes, that is a joke that I wrote down. I've seen several of your Edinburgh shows, and your comedy is happy and delightfully uncynical and joyous. For people who haven't seen what you do you want to first chastise them and then explain how you approach your comedy?
Well, first of all, I couldn't chastise anyone for not seeing me. If they're missing out on something, then that's their problem, not mine. But I don't know. I try and do comedy that I would want to see. So I try not to do anything that is making people feel helpless, because I think there's a lot of really great shows that have some really great messages, but sometimes you come out thinking, there's still nothing I can do. So I guess if I'm going to make a point, I try and do stuff that also provides a solution. And if I can't do that, then I just have fun, because there's a lot of other people out there battling the serious subjects, and they're doing it really well, and that's their thing. And people should see them, and then if they need a breath of air, come and see me.
Yeah, I mean, seeing your shows, I always just think it's just fun. It's just like an hour of just absolute lovely fun and laughs.
Well, thank you. It's meant to be play. It's like when you're a child and you play.
Yeah. Well, we're here actually because you've just done a gig that you're involved with Comedy for Kids.
Yeah. I love doing Comedy Club for Kids. I probably look forward to my Comedy Club for Kids shows more than I look forward to my adult shows.
Okay.
Because at least if you're going to get heckled, they're creative. Like kids like put effort into their head, even if they're like violent and horrible. I had a kid once tell me that he was going to rip my head off. And if an adult said that to me, it's terrifying. But if a child says it,
it's even more terrifying.
No, because in my head, I can fight a child and win.
Okay.
You know,
you've never actually.
I've never actually done it.
Okay.
I should say that I've never actually fought a child. But I know deep down, if an adult took umbrage with something that I said or did, which would be weird, but if they did, and they wanted to like follow me home or something, then that's really threatening.
Yeah, you'd rather that was a 4-year-old.
Follows you home. Then you just call their parents.
Yeah, or the police.
Yeah, and they're like, this child's lost.
Your first Edinburgh show was 2009, but you were first there in 2008.
Yeah. I was front of house for Gilded Balloon.
Gilded Balloon.
Yeah. So I knew I was already doing comedy, but I wanted to suss out the Fringe before I did a show there. And I've always found that the best way to get an idea of how a festival works is to work at first, and then you get a good idea of where the good venues are, or what the good night places are, where to get accommodation. You're getting, you're getting definite money. It's not a lot of money, but at least, you're usually breaking even more than people do when they're doing a show.
Yeah.
So it's relatively risk-free. And it's a really good way of networking as well, making connections. So
now, your accent, you're not a native to these isles.
No, I'm not.
How long had you been over here when you got to Edinburgh? Or did you come over specifically
I came
for
over
Edinburgh?
for Edinburgh, yeah.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to do a show at Edinburgh, so I came over in July 2008, and then I found a place to live, because I thought that I would stay on in Edinburgh after Fringe, because I was like, that's where all the comedy is.
Yeah.
And I realised that is not where all the comedy is. So I stayed on in Edinburgh for about 9 months before moving down to London.
So you know it probably better than most that just end up spending August there.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it looks like outside of August.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really
I've seen
nice
pictures.
city. Yeah.
I feel like I am missing out on that. And then, so that was quite good, because that gave you an in at Gilded Balloon, because all of your shows have been at the Gilded Balloon.
Yeah.
If you love the Gilded Balloon so much, why don't you just marry it?
Yeah, I did, basically, didn't I?
And you did.
I guess when I first worked there, I felt a real family connection with all the staff. Everyone was really lovely, and Karen Corrin was like this sort of comedy mother fairy godmother type figure who's like really sassy and she gets stuff done, and I like that. And so
particularly for Australians, it's sort of like the Australian embassy in Edinburgh, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I don't know what I guess there's a real connection between Scots and Aussies. I think we get each other, and I knew I wanted to do my shows there, and I spent so many years doing shows there, and my now husband had worked there either as front of house or stage managing other shows or directing my shows. So we realised we're there every year in some capacity, and it's such a beautiful building. So we were like, oh, that's where we should get married.
So I was going to say, so it's like going back to that. It's you got married there. You actually got married in the venue.
Yeah.
Did they close all the shows down for a day?
No. Well, the wedding didn't take the whole day, so we were in the debating hall. So we had
to book
a couple of hours slot there, yeah, and then we had the nightclub in the evening. So
it's just like having an Edinburgh show. Were you worried that people wouldn't come? Did you fly for it?
We actually had the opposite problem. It's that all of our friends were in the same city at the same time, and it was having to choose if there's enough space for everyone that we wanted to be there. So that was the hardest thing, was basically telling a lot of friends they couldn't bring their partners or kids or whatever, because we're like, well, if you bring your friend, your girlfriend or boyfriend, then we can't invite someone else that we know really well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, unless you can get the Guardian in. Like, if they can get the Guardian in, then why not go ahead and do that? How do you find audiences when you're up there? Do you do your own publicity? Have you done like the flyering and the?
Yeah, for many years I was my own flyerer, and then I would maybe supplement that with help from paying another flyerer. But usually I flyed myself, and I found that the people who I flyed myself years ago are the ones who kept coming back,
right?
Because they remembered me.
Yeah.
And I find that when you fly yourself, you make a personal connection with someone. You're more likely to get them along if you can have a conversation with them rather than just handing them a flyer. I find it's best to try and find an in, whether it's someone who's bored and is waiting for something, or I don't know. You've just got to look for people who look like they wouldn't mind a quick conversation. If you can make them laugh in conversation, then they know that you can make them laugh on stage, so they're more likely to come and see you then.
Yeah.
And because of that, they feel an emotional connection with you because you've made time to get to know them. So they're usually better audience members because they're invested in you and they want you to do well. So it's kind of symbiotic. You've got to treat your audiences as the people that they are. You can't just see them as the people paying for your tickets.
I think one of the things you have to be prepared for is that no one really wants to take your flyer, and they know that you don't really want to be giving them out. But it does make a big difference, like making those relationships with people.
Yeah.
I do find that obviously this show is about, at the heart of it, it's about mental health, and I think one of the things, that feeling of rejection when you see somebody see you coming at them with a flyer and you see their face turn into something.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that every day? Are you good with that?
I mean, I think I had I grew up in a really political family. So my dad was heavily involved with the Australian Democrats, which I guess is kind of like the Lib Dems over here. They sort of went the same way as well. Like everyone was like, up on stage was like, oh, you're going to be great. And then everyone went, oh, it's a shame that didn't work out. So from a really young age, my brother and I would canvass with my dad. So we'd go door to door, and during elections we'd be handing out flyers. And then one of my earliest jobs outside of school, I did door-to-door sales, essentially. I worked for an energy company, so I was trying to get people to switch their electricity to solar or sustainable sources, and that was a lot of rejection. That's just door-to-door.
So you think it's something you build a resistance to?
I think so, and also I found that doing that, like for every horrible thing where people swore at me or literally set their dogs on me, I also had other people who were incredibly kind. Like on 40-degree days, I had people giving me cans of Coke. I had an old lady make me come inside and have an ice cream. I got invited into barbecues that were happening. All this. You see both sides of humanity, and when you witness a human kindness that people are capable of, then it makes the horrible stuff way more bearable. And I think it's the same with flyering.
Yeah.
I think for every time that you see someone lose interest or not want to talk to you, you've got to remember that there's other people out there who are your people and they're your audience, and they'll give to you if you give to them.
Well, that brings us nicely onto reviews, I think, because that's a very similar thing, isn't it? We were noting in an earlier interview that like you get 10 good reviews, and then if you get a bad one, you instantly forget those 10 good ones, and it's a harder blow to take.
I think the worst reviews are the ones that pick up on stuff that you are deep down insecure about. Like, I've had unfavourable reviews, but when I haven't agreed with them, I've just been able to be like, well, they're wrong. Sometimes they've taken away something from the show that they've either misheard or they clearly weren't paying attention in a bit and they missed something, or they just completely not understood the point of a joke, when I've known from doing the show for ages that joke works. So I know, that's them, that's their problem. They were either too busy looking at their notepad or thinking about how they were going to phrase a pull quote or whatever.
Do you sweat reviews? Are you a person that like waits for them and reads them? And
I look for them, but mainly now because of in the past it was because I desperately wanted to get a good review. Sometimes you get the review. Yeah, the ones that hurt me the most are the ones where they're like, this seemed a bit shoehorned in. And in the back of my head, I'm like, I did shoehorn that bit of material. I know I did. Those are the ones that I find hurt the most. But at least then, if you know that someone's noticed it, you can change it or try and find a way around it.
Yeah, I mean, they are, like, people call them reviews. They are critiques. Like, and
well,
I think
the good ones are.
Yeah, but I think it's important to read them so that you do, like, you take it as criticism and you actually think about those things and think, are they right? Could I do something better? Could I improve that to make it a thing like that? But at the same time, not obsessing about, being able to say they're wrong.
If you're really, really happy with your show, the reviews don't matter so much, because if you're not planning on changing anything, or if you've done it for so long that you're like, I can't keep changing this is the show in its best possible form. Yeah. There's no point sweating over them at all. If there's some things not working in the show, it can help to read a review, but you've got to keep a level head about what they're bringing up and why, and what they've taken from the show, whether that's you've done that or they've done that.
Do you have people around? Like, you usually have support up there in Edinburgh?
Yeah, normally most years my husband's been there, either taking or directing, or he might be working on another show or something, so he's around. But a couple of times he's come up for a brief time and then had to come back to London now that he's working in London. And those are tough, so you've got to make sure that you've got other friendships or other people that you can spend time with when things are tough. Also, they're the people who can read reviews for you and tell you if they're worth reading. Yeah. So it's quite nice to have someone who can do that. Yeah. Yeah.
My partner, we have the relationship where I will read the review, or she'll instruct me to read the review and then tell her whether she should read it or not, and then read it regardless, whatever I say.
I think my biggest bugbear, which came to fruition last year, is when people come to your show under the guise of being reviewers, and the review doesn't come out for ages or doesn't come out at all. Yeah. I've had some times where the review hasn't come out till after the Fringe or at the very end of the Fringe, which has been frustrating, but at least I can say, I can use that for future
if it's good.
Shows. Yeah. But I did have one last year where the guy came to the show. The show had mainly sold out its run, and he came to the show on a free ticket and then never wrote a review. And when I called him on it, he then told me that that's how things are done. And I've been doing this long enough to know that that's never happened to me before. And I just felt he was being a bit of a douche, to be honest.
That's fair enough.
And I told him so, yeah. So that's the only problem I have, is when they don't respect the fact that while you're certainly there to hone your craft, you're also there to make your money back. or make a profit if preferable, and to take away from that I think is really disrespectful.
I mean, one of the things we're trying to do with this show this year is try and put those people together, remind people that like reviewers are just working the festival too. And you know, I've spoken to reviewers who said that they've had, you know, a team of young reviewers working for them, and they've had to cancel their reviewers because they've had bad experiences where they've had a bad review and they've got into a fight with them, and or they've had a bad review and they just like everybody starts getting at them, and like the reviewers are under a lot of mental pressure as well. So I think that we all need to work a little bit more like together up there, like a community, and be aware of those things. You won the Barry Award for Best Show at the Fringe in 2014. That's voted for by fellow performers. So is that because you network effectively and you?
Oh, I hope not.
Well, no. I don't mean it like that. Obviously, you're a super likable person, and it would have been, you know, for the show. But I mean, do you have a big network of like fellow comics that you can talk to about, I say, bringing it back to like mental health?
I don't think I have a bigger network than any other comedian. I think it's impossible not to create a network of friends in this job because they're your peers, but it's such a personal job. It's so much of it's about who you are. So business and personal life get mixed together. So I do have a lot of friends in the comedy industry, but that's because they're the only people I tend to see in my life. It is really important to rely on each other. I think it's also really important to be careful and aware of the people that give and take from your mental health.
Right.
There's some people who, if you take a step back and think about it, you realize that, oh, actually every time I see that person, they make me feel worse about myself. And they might not even be aware of that, but there's enough people that you can usually keep them at arm's length without it being a personal issue with them.
It's just bad for me to hear what you're probably going to say to me right now. Let's talk about it later. That sort of thing. I mean, I think that there's a danger in Edinburgh that we all go into sort of PR mode when we're talking to people, even if it's just like people we know. Like we bump into someone in the street and they say, "How's it going?" And you immediately go into like, "It's great, I'm getting good reviews, and you know, we've had good audiences," and you leave out all of the negative stuff from that. You don't talk about the bad reviews, you don't talk about the bad audiences. And I think just by doing that, we need to realise that the other person only hears the good stuff, doesn't know about the bad stuff, and goes away thinking, "Oh my God, everybody's doing so much better than I am."
I think that very much comes down to where you are in terms of your level. So when I started out, that was very much the case. When I was doing my first few shows, it felt like we were all just trying to tell each other how great we are. And now, as I've gone on, and the people that I started out with are also getting to a level where we've been doing it for years and we're full-time now and we're relying on it more, there's a change. I find that last year I found we went the complete opposite thing. Everyone I ran into, we all were like, "Oh, it's terrible. Oh, I'm so tired. And sometimes you can have the opposite problem. Sometimes you're so used to saying, "Oh, this is bad and this is bad and this is bad." You forget to think about the really good things. You forget to think about how much you're enjoying the shows. That nice thing that happened, that audience member who made you feel amazing because they sat in the front row and smiled the whole time, even though that you were having a rough gig. You know, it's so easy to focus on one end or the other, and I think it's really important to be balanced in that. We should be honest with each other when we're talking about ourselves, but at the same time, don't be so down that you're not looking forward to doing your job anymore. Don't focus so much on the negatives. That if that's the case, if you can't see the positives, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's not a good job to do if you struggle to see the other side. So I think it's really important to really enjoy those good moments when they happen and share in them. And remember that when your friends are sharing their good moments with you, that means that you can also have a good moment. Sometimes, and if you're not in a place where you can hear about other people's good moments, go home and put on the TV and watch Simpsons and order a pizza. you know, like self-care, you don't have to be constantly networking, you don't have to be talking to everyone all the time. If you've had a bad gig, you don't have to go out and share it with other people. You can just have a sleep. Because more often than not, that's the problem. You're not sleeping properly and not eating properly. So do that first.
Where do you go hide in Edinburgh? Where are you? I mean, not specifically, because I don't want to infringe anybody else into your.
It's normally wherever I'm
space.
staying. So sometimes I'll just go back to wherever I'm staying and lock myself in the room or lounge or whatever. But it's not as close. So if I've got other gigs and I don't have time to go home and come back in, my personal one is I tend to hang out in the box office at Gilda Balloon.
Okay.
And just quietly sit there on my phone. There's also usually areas of bars at various venues or cafes or whatever. There's usually, more often than not, there'll be a place where there's like a corner. Nobody goes in because there's no tables or the reception's bad or whatever. It's just about finding those little areas, or maybe it's a park, you know, when the sun's out, and just find shade under a tree and have a lie down. But
I did a show at the Caves a few years ago, and there was a rumour that there was a spot in the Caves, like up one of those sort of old dusty staircases, where you could just go and nap. And they never told me where exactly it was, because like don't give away your.
Yeah, no. Do you know what? I've been very tempted sometimes to just book a show slot and just put out mattresses, and everyone can book a ticket to go and have a nap for an hour.
You would make a fortune.
But when you think about it, lying down takes a lot more space than chairs.
Yeah.
So you'd probably only be able to fit like 10 people.
You can stack people, you bunk bed. Yeah, you can get that done.
We just need to get a sponsor.
Not to put a downer on it, but your lowest festival moment, can you think of a moment where you were just like, no, I don't like this?
I think every year I have a lowest moment. And it's normally not something I can sort of place an exact thing on. It might be a bad review, or more often than not, it's a show where just nothing seemed to sit right. I remember a couple of years ago that my lowest moment was the first day. I did my first show, and everything failed. It just wasn't. The laughs weren't there, and I felt uncomfortable, and none of it worked. And I remember having like a massive old cry that afternoon, because I just thought, what am I doing? Like, this is the beginning of the festival. And then the next day I got up early and tried to think about how I could avoid it. And I actually found out that one was a physical problem. It was an issue with the stage. My props were on the wrong side of the stage. So while I'm right-handed, but I put the props to the left. And just that difference in having to do that made me feel, I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Next day I just swapped one side they were on. And it was one of the best shows I'd had for the whole run, at my second show. Because suddenly I went, that's what I needed to do, was put everything in easy reach. That was it, that was the change. But I needed to have a moment to get through to the other side.
Yeah. I mean, that's the perfect example for me of a worst moment, because what we're really looking for is those moments where people say the worst thing led to actually the best thing.
Yeah.
And that, there's always a sunny side of the street.
In fact, I can give you another one.
Please.
I had to do a gig that was just outside of town, just outside of Edinburgh, but I said yes to it, so it was paid. And it was horrible. It was the first time I'd properly died, and every other act went really well, and the range of acts was so diverse that I couldn't blame it on not being British or being female, or like I couldn't say like, oh, this is just a bigoted audience or whatever, because they loving every other act that represented every other thing. There were alternative acts, they liked them, I just couldn't work it out, and they did not like me at all. And I walked off stage, and there was a woman doing the stage managing, and she just put her hand on my shoulder and went, "You're very brave," which is the most patronising thing. And I just went backstage and I just bawled my eyes out. And Mae Higgins was on, and she came back and she saw me crying, and she said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "You saw what happened. I had a horrible gig." And she said, "Did anyone throw anything at you?" And I said, "Well, no." And she said, "Right, did you get booed off stage early?" I said, "Well, no, but the hate was palpable." She said, "Well, until you've had one of those, you haven't really died. So, first of all, if that's the worst gig you ever had, be happy. And the fact that she was so straight to the point with me, like really sort of made me try and see it from a different angle. And I still feeling very sorry for myself the next day, and then the next day is the first time I ever got a 5-star review. Not for that gig, for my normal show, but I just went from my lowest point of wondering why I was doing this to like having this external validation saying, oh no, you're on the right track. So I was like, oh, okay, it's all about perspective, and you can't put too much weight on anything that happens, really.
One of the questions from social media was, have there been any changes to the Fringe in the last 10 years that have been for the better or worse, do you think? Has anything substantially moved?
I think the biggest change has been the free Fringe stuff. And I guess depending on who you talk to, it could be seen as either way. It's really helped a lot of people who don't have the connections or the finances to take a show up there in the first place. And it has meant that there's a lot of spontaneity that I think a lot of the Fringe had lost for a long time. Because when it started out, it was kind of that. And then it became something very corporate and very clean and precise. And now it feels like it's going back to that Fringe feeling again. But I would say the downside of it means that it's made, because the quality is so varied, there's a lot of people who go up there who I'm not sure are ready to do a month of hour-long shows yet. And the problem with that is that then when audiences see them and don't enjoy themselves, they become much more wary about what else they see. And that might mean that they're missing out on another act who's doing free Fringe, but who has something, even if it's the bare bones of something, they have something that's waiting, that fire that needs to get out. And that's when they miss out. And they're not getting the audiences they should be.
Yeah. I guess it's a learning experience, isn't it, as well? Like with each Fringe, presumably you become a little bit more battle hardened towards it, and you get to know more people, and it gets much better. So even if you have a kind of bad experience, I suppose the free Fringe has sort of opened the opportunity to go there and take a punt without the massive financial risk. But then you could be taking a punt on something that's going to mean that you're playing to empty audiences for a month and risk being downhearted by that.
I think you just need to make sure that you know what your purpose for going to Fringe is, and then stay true to that. So if you're going up because you need stage time and you want to be a better comedian, then treat it like that. Do your sets and learn from them, and work on your process. Don't go out partying every night and then doing the same thing every day, because you're not learning and you're not becoming a better comedian. So if you have a joke that's not working and you're there to make sure that you come out a better comic, then make sure that by the end of it that joke is working. And that way you'll end up, no matter what happens, you'll end up having a good time because you've achieved what you went there for. If you're going there specifically for industry, then make sure that your show is tight before you go up there so that the industry see you at your best.
Yeah.
Don't go up if you're not ready, because then all you're doing is advertising that you're not ready.
Finally, what does Edinburgh mean to you?
For me, Edinburgh, quite personally, Edinburgh forces me to write a new show and have it ready before August. I don't like to go up without knowing exactly what I'm doing. That's why I go. On a grander scale, it's like summer camp. So it's where you're forced to spend a lot of time with a lot of people, and you'll forge friendships that you never thought that you'd have, and you might lose a few friendships that you never thought you'd lose. But you come out of it developed, like when you're a kid and you go away and you come back and you go, oh, I've learned some truths about myself, and some of them are good and worth focusing on, and others, you know, things you want to change about yourself.